Welcome back. Now, the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation Radio Services will be hosting this year's World Radio Day celebrations, which will be held on the 13th of February at the Radio Center in Windhoek. Now, in the build-up to the 12th World Radio Day celebration, we will be hosting a series of interviews with various radio managers, key stakeholders, and industry players within the radio fraternity. And today we're joined in studio by Nsinde Limbo, the manager of radio administration at NBC Radio, to speak to us about this year's theme. A very good morning, Ms. Limbo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Tapewa. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right. How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Now, this year's theme is Radio and Peace. Kindly just talk to us about the role of radio with regards to towards maintaining peace, and also just what is the key role of radio itself?
Yes, thank you. Radio has always been a unifier. It has always been that medium that you go to when you feel the need to get information, when you feel the need to get facts correct. So this year's theme really plays very well in terms of our role as radio. And it's actually befitting for the NBC Radio Services that we have been honored to host this year's 12th World Radio Day celebrations, because we have been at the forefront of always promoting peace, always wanting to put content that speaks to peace, the sustenance of peace, avoiding conflict, and all controversial matters that have always arose. We have always tried to be at the forefront of trying to minimize that tension, to maintain peace, and make sure that we speak to content that doesn't feel that conflict at the level of our communities, because we have the ability to speak to our communities in the languages. Remember, we have the advantage of all the official languages, all the national languages. So when we have that ability, it becomes easier for us to communicate to our people. It becomes easier for us to be in touch with the realities on the ground, because people can actually speak to us in a language that they are comfortable with. So that aspect of peace we have really maintained from the grassroots level to the level of authorities, because we allow people to speak in their languages, and we also bring about that unifying platform to balance between the grassroots and the authorities, so that people are not left without information, and that the governed also know that there is governing authorities where we can go to when we need assistance. So in that way, we have really tried to sustain the peace that prevails.
All right. So we are bringing peace across in all different languages that we have in Namibia, basically.
Yes.
All right. Now, what impact does radio have in terms of framing narratives around certain controversial issues, and also just what influence does it have when it comes to the public debates?
Radio has always been powerful, because it has the ability to make or break what currently exists. Mm-hmm. So as a platform, and as the people who are in charge of that, the custodians of that platform, we have really played a crucial role. It's a role that we don't take for granted, because it's very fragile. It can be taken away from us if we are not careful in the way we frame narratives, because whatever we speak on the radio has that ability to shape public opinion. It has that ability to shape, narratives that would play out in public discourses, which is why we don't take our role lightly. We are very, very careful. We are very deliberate in terms of what content we put on air, in terms of what opinions that we allow on our platforms. And we do that with the use of our very strong editorial policies, guidelines, which guide the conduct of our people when they come to our platforms. Not that we do not want people to express themselves, but there has to be certain limitations. We have to look at the issues that are on the ground and how these issues can actually be, moderated, so that we don't come out and play into the controversies that emanate from the communities. We try to manage that tension, whatever tension is out there. And recently, you might have seen there has been so many outrage in terms of protests, demonstrations, and so on. But what we do as a platform, we do not want to limit the opinions of people. We do not want to avoid people from coming to our platforms to speak about that. But we need to manage that in terms of finding a balance between what the communities are unhappy about and what authorities can do to avert this unhappiness in our communities. So we have really played that role, and radio has always moderated that conflict to manage it.
All right. Now talk to us about the process of the aspect and the importance of programming and content at the same time, because at the end of the day, we are putting out the information. NBC is all about educating and informing the public. But let's talk about the content that is put out there and also just programming.
Yes. Our content is issue-based, you know. We have an approach that we look at our programming from an issue-based perspective because of the pluralism that we have in terms of the diverse languages we broadcast in. That gives us the advantage to be able to be in touch with the community needs. What the Oshirero community needs, we will know because obviously we have talk shows, we have call-in shows, we also go to our communities and have these radio outreach programs. So from the issues emanate, and from those issues then we come and tailor-make content, excuse me, we make content around the issues that we hear that communities need, the communities hear that these are the issues that we want to put forward. Can you please give us that platform to put across these issues? So content is not always in a vacuum. We do not put content that doesn't speak to the needs of our communities. Again, in the same vein, this content has to also speak to the authorities because sometimes help is out there, but the communities will not know where to get this help. Help is out there. Agencies are in place. Programs are in place that would assist the communities, but people would not know if we do not come in there to provide that platform, to give that information. So our programs, our content is always tailored around the needs of our communities and what it is that our communities want to see or want to hear around their development issues, you know, social challenges, issues like poverty and so on. When we speak about those things, then we bring in the authorities, we bring in those in charge of these issues to see how these can be addressed and what answers we can bring back to our community.
All right. Now, with that said, you know, like what role do editorial policies play when it comes to quality control measures?
We have a very strong editorial policy here at the NBC, at radio, and it has helped us in so many ways. So editorial control and monitoring plays a very key role because that is what distinguishes us from your fake news that emanate from social media, from issues that arise in public discourses that may not have been verified. So we come in with that professional aspect. We say that we have journalistic standards to uphold. We want to uphold this credibility that we have always been known for. And when we do that, we don't just take anything and everything to put on air, but it has to go through an editorial control. It has to go through quality control measures. This has really helped us in so many ways because they were potentially controversial issues that had emanated from everywhere else, and they would eventually end up on our platforms. But we manage those, and the only way to manage those is through the use of editorial policies. We put into place those professional standards. We allow people to speak, but then we tell them that, look, there is room for you to speak. You are allowed to speak, but please bear in mind that whatever you say should not be to the detriment of our professionalism. It should not also be, you know, derogatory to the next community or to the next race or to whoever is listening here, because our platforms seek to unify. And for us to be able to unify, we have to have these policies in place to guide the conduct of people on our platforms.
All right. Now, Ms. Limbo, you know, we are moving, into a new era, you know, with technology and all that. But we see so many things coming up. We have podcasts, which are also kind of like similar to radio. Then we also have social media, you know, different platforms. But what is it that radio has that podcasts or other social media platforms where people are talking, you know, having conversations similar to radio? What is it that radio has that they don't have? And what makes radio go? What keeps radio going?
I don't want to brag, but you know, radio is that platform. It has always been that medium that you can't avoid, and it cannot be overtaken by developments. Yes, indeed, there is developments in the digital space. We have seen, you know, online radio come on board. We have seen, you know, social media pages also doing things like streaming and all those. But we still maintain our strength in the frequency mode. But we have also moved to these platforms to speak to the audiences that do not have access to your frequency mode. Audiences like yourself and myself that hardly have time to sit and listen to a radio, you know, through the physical means. So we have moved into an era where we have our radio stations now trying to also intensify their online presence. They have gone into live streaming. If you have programs maybe on Kati FM or Wanyi FM, you'll see that sometimes they go onto their Facebook pages. They stream some of their programs. Maybe it's a talk show or maybe it's a studio discussion. So they will be streaming it as it happens on the radio. They also stream it on their Facebook page to allow maybe the young people, the young professional that doesn't have time to sit and listen to a radio, so that they can also get in touch with them and also, you know, consume this content on a platform that really speaks to their demographic. So we are not really saying that we are moving away from our conventional mode of broadcasting, but we will move to these platforms so that we can also align our audiences, we align our content with what is happening in the digital space. But again, radio has always been that tool. It has that power. So what we will do is just to complement that power with the online presence, with social media interaction. And Touch FM has really been doing very well in that aspect. And the other stations have also been doing well in terms of streaming, in terms of social media posting, promoting their content on social media, so that would drive the traffic from social media, from online platforms back to the conventional spaces where they can now have longer versions of the content, longer programs that the consumers can now really appreciate. So we still have maintained that balance very well, and we are getting there.
All right, and slowly but surely the day is approaching. The 13th of February is definitely not far. So how are the preparations going?
Preparations are ongoing. We are excited. It's really an honor for us as the NBC to have been honored to host this year's Radio Day celebrations. So we have a lineup of activities that we have planned for the day. We will be live on all our platforms as usual. We will provide streaming services for the radio services, and also the private media, the commercial stations, the community radio stations will be joining us at the radio center. So we will be able to interact with our peers in the industry, and also to align ourselves with developments in the industry to see how that interaction, how that networking could also benefit our radio stations, especially in terms of community radios, the commercial radios, how the revenue aspect could also be replicated at our radio stations, so that we also boost our revenue. As you know, we have an aggressive drive to boost our revenue. So we really want to learn from the commercial media how they are doing that, and also the community intervention from the community radio stations, how we can boost that so that our radio stations can also really be in touch with the people at the grassroots and intensify what we already have. So we're looking forward. It's a big day for us.
All right, Ms. Limbo, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we wish you all the best with the day, and we can't wait to celebrate World Radio Day.
It's always a pleasure. We look forward to having you there. Please join us.
We definitely will.
Thank you.
That was Nsinde Limbo, who is the manager of the NBC Radio Administration, talking to us about the celebrations that will be taking place on the 13th of February, and also just touching on the theme of this year's World Radio Day, which is radio and peace. Now, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more.